Call to order the city council agenda meeting for November 20th, 2023. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Schwartz.
Here.
Member Karen.
Here.
Member Cheney Huggett.
Here.
Member Gates. Member Traver. Member Underhill.
Here.
Member Wolfersberger.
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. We were going to have invocation by Bill Cole, Maple Grove Bible Church. He is not here this evening. Please stand for the.
If I may, could I move that we excuse Member Traver and Member Gates from tonight's meeting?
Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion to excuse Councilmember Gates, Councilmember Traver. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. That brings us to approval of our agenda. Under item 6, we have public comment on agenda items. Persons addressing city council are required to give their name and address for the record when called upon by the mayor. Members of the public shall be limited to speaking for a maximum of 3 minutes. Comments shall be addressed on agenda items only. Public hearing items should be addressed during the public hearing portion, which will be under item 10. Non-agenda items shall be addressed during the public comment, non-agenda items, section 14 in the agenda. Then under section 7 on our consent agenda, we have city council minutes from our regular session on November 6, 2023. And we have under B, city bills totaling $1,615,388.34. Under C, we have distribution transformer purchases. And 7D is set a special meeting for December 9th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Under section 8, we have nothing. No informational items under 9. Under 10, we do have a public hearing and subsequent council action. A, exhibition driving ordinance update. And 10B is deer feeding and baiting ordinance. Then under section 11, old business will be the creation of industrial development district for the Ford Blue Oval Battery Park. Under 12A, we set a public hearing for special land use for the Tractor Supply Company. Under 12B, B schedule for deer feeding and baiting. Section C, Michigan AMP Board of Trustees appointment. Section 12D, AT&T Metro Act unilateral permit extension. Then we move to item 13, which is A, our Board of Review appointments. 13B is our Planning Commission appointments. And then under 14 is public comment on non-agenda items. Under 15, we have council and manager communications, followed by adjournment. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Member Wolfersberger, supported by Council Member Underhill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item 6, public comment on agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak on agenda items? Yes, sir.
Barry Wayne Adams, again, 622 West Green Street. It appears that there seems to be a underlying go-ahead, even though through the media, we are given the impression that Ford is not going to proceed. And in spite of the catastrophic economic influences that have recently happened in terms of both the UAW strike and the crash in demand for EV vehicles that Ford now can't get rid of. They've got over 100,000 that nobody want to buy, and the dealers don't want them in their car lots because they don't want to have a catastrophic loss of their inventory. But in spite of those things, there still seems to be going on an underlying progression for the battery plant to go in. And it is also suspect, I'll use that word, it's suspect that Marietti at this last hearing that the committee had against the city about the referendum. And it was really just a repeat, a reason to increase billing hours of the August 30th hearing. And Marriott again left it open-ended as to, he said he was going to come forth with an opinion, but it was left very open-ended. So there seems to be an underlying conspiracy to kick the can down the road and try to get things in under the door before it creates any additional opposition. So again, I was, very straightforward at the last thing. This whole thing you're trying to do, and particularly again with this creation of this development district, that's outside of the authority of the government. This use of fund funneling, money laundering, in order to create the impression that public funds aren't being used for private purposes is a ruse that is not being well accepted by the populace.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on agenda items? Seeing none, that moves us to item 7 on our consent agenda. 7A, City Council minutes, approval of the City Council minute, regular session, November 6, 2023. And we have city bills purchases on 11/3/2023, the amount of $218,038.41. Purchases on 11/10/2023 in the amount of $137,801.76. Purchases on 11/21/2023 in the amount of $445,922.92. And October power invoice in the amount of $813,625.25 for a total of $1,615,388.34. Then item 7C is the distribution of transformer purchases. And item D is set the special meeting for December 9, 2023 at 9 a.m. That's to go over our goals and where we stand now and moving into 2024. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilmember Wolfersberger, supported by Councilmember Underhill, roll call, please.
Member Karen,
Yes.
member Cheney Huggett,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Motion carries, Your Honor.
Thank you. That brings us to item 10, public hearings and subsequent council action. Persons addressing city council are required to give their name and address for the record when called upon by the mayor. Members of the public shall be limited to speaking for a maximum of 3 minutes per the public hearing. Under 10A, we have exhibition driving ordinance update. Want to give us an update on that, Chief?
Mr. Mayor and council. The Marshall's Police Department periodically reviews our ordinances to determine if there's changes that are needed. Last year, we investigated we went over this last council meeting, but we're gonna rehash this. We had a complaint of basically a driving complaint of a subject doing donuts in a snow-covered parking lot. When we reviewed the applicable ordinances, we just found that careless and reckless driving met that, and that our exhibition driving did not meet the threshold for that violation as it was reported. So when we looked at the ordinance, we reviewed that with our city prosecutor, John Sullivan, and drafted an update to the ordinance to expand that enforcement to include public streets. And the specific language would to include highway or other public place to the general public or generally accessible to motor vehicles, including an area designated for the parking of vehicles. The update also includes language that kind of addresses the type of vehicle violation that we had, the intentional and quotations, and intentional and unnecessary driving in the manner that causes the vehicle to move in a random zigzag or circular direction, to kind of, look at those situations where people are doing donuts. And looking at this, the adoption of the proposed exhibition driving ordinance update would allow officers an additional enforcement action that has a reduced penalty. So when you're looking at careless driving and reckless driving, those are like 4 points and higher fines. Exhibition allows us to apply a lesser violation for that offense on private property. The budget impact on this is no anticipated budget impact, and the recommendation is to enact this ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance amending the City of Marshall City of Ordinances Section 70.06 exhibition driving, and to publish that ordinance in full in the local newspaper.
This time I'll open the public hearing for exhibition driving ordinance update. Anybody wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Mary Wayne Adams again, 622 West Green Street. This is a perfect example of evidence that we're under a system of corporate fascism. Here you have the police, the executive branch, who is in charge with enforcing the laws, making suggestions to the legislative body as to what the laws should be. Now, that seems to be an impermissible looping or pulling away the separation of powers between the executive and the legislative. And when the executive even goes back to the Federalist Papers, when the executive is in charge of making the laws, then that is the first indication of tyranny. What you're doing is you're making forbidden fruit. Now, pass this law. Let's see what happens at the cruise of the fountain. See how much money is lost after people decide that, hey, we can't, take our hot rods down to Marshall and, do a little showing off. I am culpable of going through that phase of life in America where you get you're young, you get a car, and you have an open parking lot with some snow in it, and you get to test your driving skills with, hopefully you're not gonna hit a lamppost or anything. But, I mean, we pay taxpayer money to, teach the police how to drive this way, how to be able to control a car in this manner. But what you're gonna be making is forbidden fruit and, just creating a way to make, another revenue input for what is, perceived by the police to be misbehavior. Now, when you're legislating, you're supposed to be listening to this side of the aisle, not this side of the aisle. Article 1, Section 1, and Article 1, Section 3 of the Michigan Constitution. So, yeah, oh, and one more thing. Your ability to make laws is derivative of what's in the state statutes, and there is absolutely nothing in the state statutes about exhibition driving. So I don't know where you presume to create authority to be able to prohibit this, but according to the structuring of the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, it would be ultra vires ab initio.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on exhibition driving? Close the public hearing. Council discussion. Okay. The recommendation isn't from the police chief, it's through the city prosecutor addressing an issue that the city has. And as far as revenue, I don't know if it's revenue, but I think it's called penalties that are placed on someone, not revenues that are placed on a person for this type of behavior. And so it is within the purview to allow the ordinance. Therefore, I'll take a motion to enact ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance amending City of Marshall Code of Ordinances, section 70.06, exhibition driving and punishment, and publish the ordinance in full in the local newspaper.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Cheney Huggett. A roll call vote, please.
Member Cheney Huggett,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger.
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz,
Yes,
member Karen.
Yes.
Motion carries, Your Honor.
thank you. That brings us to item 10B. Deer feeding and baiting ordinance, Chief.
Honorable Council, again, I'm here to present on the deer feeding and baiting ordinance. It's a new proposed ordinance. The Marshall Police Department has been working with the Department of Natural Resource and our local city deer management committee in management of our deer population. One of the topics that was discussed is the feeding of deer in the city of Marshall. This is an offense that has come up from time to time. And one of the issues that was discussed is that this violation per state statute is a misdemeanor offense. This issue was discussed with the city prosecutor, and we looked over this ordinance in a way that to try to reduce that offense to a municipal civil infraction instead of a misdemeanor. The ordinance that was proposed by City Prosecutor John Sullivan, we drafted the ordinance. The ordinance uses a similar language as the state statute, making feeding of deer municipal civil infraction as opposed to the state statute of a misdemeanor, and provides some exceptions for specifically in the statute or in the ordinance. It keeps the baiting in violation for baiting related to hunting, a misdemeanor offense as outlined in the state statute. This ordinance provides an enforcement option for the city our department, which better fits our community standards and aligns with our deer management program strategy of trying to get compliance and try to reduce that population and keep them from, those complaints of citizens are quite frequent when we're talking about eating shrubbery and whatnot throughout the city. So trying to deter them out of the people's yards and whatnot. So, and away from civilization, so to speak. The budget impact, there's no anticipated budget impact on this. The recommendation is to enact ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance adding section 97.08, deer feeding and baiting prohibited to the city of Marshall Code of Ordinances, and publish the ordinance in full in the local newspaper.
Thank you. This time, I'll open up the public hearing reference enacting of ordinance 2023-13. Ordinance adding section 9708 deer feeding and baiting ordinance. Anybody wishing to speak? Yes, sir. Whoa. Try it now.
Barry Wayne Adams, 622 West Green Street. Here's where, there's this guy a long time ago. Some people try to call him Jesus, but one of his major lessons was the pointlessness of trying to order society or community or the environment through legalistic means. And the attempt to even try to pass an ordinance like this is reflective of a profound ignorance of the dynamics of ecosystems. Now, you're busy destroying habitat and farmland, and then you wonder why deer are wandering into the city. They're looking for a place to eat. If you left a place to eat, they wouldn't be coming in. But I have vegetation on my property that deer like to eat, and they do come in and eat my mulberries, and that's what nature made them for. They don't come in until very late at night, and I hope I don't blow the cover so somebody feels they have to come and try and take care of the problem. But this is caused by man, and you can't make man-made ordinances that, violate the natural law. So, I'm not going to try to dissuade the deer from coming onto my property. But what's really disturbing is, this is where it comes in the authoritariopathy thing, the mental disturbance that arises from being provided artificial authority. And, the necessity to try to estrange nature from us, and that civilization is better off when the rest of nature and wildlife has been excluded. That kind of antibiotic perspective necessarily takes on its own malignancies and subsequent repercussions. So I don't know what you're gonna do. The deer are gonna want to eat, and and I can understand if people are putting out 55-gallon drums of corn or whatever. But if they come onto my property to forage, cite me, and we're gonna go to court. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Council?
I may ask the chief a question. Just so we're clear, Chief, this ordinance doesn't have anything to do with landscaping or foliage on.
No, it's about
property.
feeding.
It's about actual baiting.
Right. It's about feeding and bait. There's a difference. Baiting is like you're trying to bring animals in to hunt them, which is totally different. That's what we're leaving as a misdemeanor. But the feeding aspect is that there are some people that are feeding these animals and it just didn't seem right. The state statute says it's a misdemeanor and it just doesn't fit with where we want compliance. We don't want to like punish somebody, but we'd rather have an option of giving them a fine instead of having a misdemeanor kind of arrest situation.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to enact ordinance 2023-13. It's an ordinance adding section 97.08, deer feeding and baiting prohibited to the City of Marshall Code of Ordinances and publish the ordinance in full in the local newspaper.
So moved.
Support. Have a motion by Councilmember Wolfersberger, supported by Councilmember Underhill. Roll call vote, please.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Member Cheney Huggett.
Yes.
Motion carries, Your Honor.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11A, creation of the Industrial Development District for Ford Blue Oval. Derek?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. This item we held our public hearing, I think, 3 meetings ago, but now it's before you for your consideration. Essentially, Public Act 198 of 1974 was enacted by the state of Michigan as an incentive program to stimulate economic growth. This incentive program involves removing real property from the regular assessment roll and instead levying a specific tax called an industrial facilities tax upon the owner or the leasee of the approved industrial property. To qualify for an IFACT, and an applicant must have a business that qualifies as a manufacturing operation and a new or existing industrial facility that is defined within the act as industrial property. Since 1977, the City of Marshall has approved 135 IFTs. To create the district, City Council needs to pass the attached resolution 2023-27 following the public hearing that was held previously. Upon creation of the district, the property owners would then be able to submit an abatement request for City Council consideration under state law and our industrial facilities tax abatement program guidelines policy. As you recall, we created that policy several months ago. That would be our guiding document on how we would recommend those for City Council consideration. Again, this is just creating the district. We have no one that has requested an actual certificate. That is its own process. This is really just establishing the boundaries to allow an industrial facility to request one.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
Derek, could you explain the process of if the council were to choose to not want this district any longer, how we would go about that?
We would bring forth a resolution that essentially would rescind this district. It's allowable under the state act. And again, that you have the legislative authority to do that. However, that would be, once we have a certificate in place, we would have to follow those guidelines to make sure that we wouldn't have the absolute authority to do that. We'd have to do that in conjunction with that facility that was given that certificate.
Thank you.
So this isn't tied to a specific parcel or piece of property. It's an area.
So this district, if you look, actually has its own legal description, and that is the district that we would be creating tonight if you approve that. And only property owners within that district would be able to apply for a certificate. Now, again, additional districts can be created, obviously the purview of the City Council. And then again, anyone within those districts has to bring that certificate forward for your consideration, and you have the authority to say no thanks.
Is there a precedent as to what comes first, the request for the certificate versus the creation of the district or the district? And I just
Yep, you have
want
to,
clarification.
yeah, you got to create the district first.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve resolution 2023-27, which would create the industrial development district for the Ford Blue Oval Battery Park site.
So moved.
Support.
Member Wolfersberger, supported by Councilmember Karen. Roll call vote, please.
Member Karen,
Yes.
member Cheney Huggett,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Motion carries, Your Honor.
Thank you. That brings us to item 12A, set a public hearing for special land use for the Tractor Supply Company. City Manager.
Yes, thank you again. So the city has received a special land use application from BR Great Northern Mall LLC to allow for the location of a Tractor Supply Company, a TSC, in the west 1/3 of the former Kmart facility. They need the SLU because they want to do outdoor displays, things like trailers, propanes, plants, things that require that special land use application. The Joint Planning Commission met on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, and recommended approval on SLU 23.03 on a 6-0 vote. To consider this request, the city council will need to schedule a public hearing at an upcoming meeting prior to approving the SLU. Staff is recommending that a public hearing be scheduled for the December 4th council meeting to consider this proposal. So tonight, all you're doing is setting the public hearing. A lot of times we do these actually under the consent calendar, but I know there's a lot of interest in what's going in on the Kmart facility. So I thought since we're going to be posting this now to the website, people might want to know what's going on with Kmart. So we might be doing some of those reports just to create some more information about that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I'll move that we schedule a public hearing for December 4th, 2023 to consider the approval of a special land use SLU 23.03 for Tractor Supply at 15861 West Michigan.
Or motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Underhill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to item 12B, which will be our fee schedule for deer feeding and baiting. Chief.
Mr. Mayor and Council, with the approval of ordinance 2023-13, the ordinance sets the feeding violation as a municipal civil infraction. This resolution was created to set a specific fee for the municipal civil infraction violation. In review of our current fine schedule and focus on compliance, the following fees were kind of established or proposed for the deer feeding municipal infraction offense. First offense of $100, second offense $300, and then third offense $500. The proposed fees are within the community standards and expectations. The focus of enforcement is mainly based on compliance. And the fee schedules kind of reflect this strategy. So as they obviously are progressive as more violations occur. Budget impact and no anticipated budget impact, but we may see an increase in revenues if there's, more violations, I guess. Recommendation to approve resolution 2023-30, authorizing the municipal civil fine fee schedule to include the deer feeding and baiting violations.
Thank you. Discussion by council. I think it's pretty straightforward with some of our other fines and costs under the municipal infractions.
I guess I do just have one question. Did we have a fee for this before?
No, this is it's a new ordinance, so.
I wasn't sure if we were updating or, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve resolution 2023-30, authorizing the municipal civil fine fee schedule to include the deer feeding and baiting violations.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Cheney Huggett, supported by Councilmember Karen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. That takes us to item 12C, our Michigan Amp Board of Trustees appointment. City Manager?
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. Again, pretty straightforward. As everyone knows, City Marshall is a member of the American Municipal Power Incorporated Association, which is AMP, is what we call it normally. AMP is governed by a 21-member board of trustees representing member customer groups and regions, as well as many at-large seats. Kevin Maynard, our Director of Electric Utilities, he's been elected to an at-large seat. But in order for him to serve, the legislative body of the city of Marshall needs to approve his position as a representative. So there's a resolution prepared tonight that would do that. So if you're so inclined, we'd appreciate to get Kevin as our representative.
Mayor, I'd move approval of resolution 2023-32 to appoint Director of Electric Utilities Kevin Maynard to represent the city of Marshall on the AMP Board of Trustees.
Have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Underhill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item 12D, AT&T Metro Act unilateral permit extension.
This is another exciting one. So pursuant to Public Act 48 of 2002, telecommunication companies required access to the city public right-of-way for telecommunication systems are required by state law to obtain a Metropolitan Extension Telecommunications Rights-of-Way Oversight Act Metro permit. Since December of 2003, AT&T has held a unilateral Metro Act permit. Renewals were also approved in 2008, 2010, 13, and 18. We have received a renewal request for a new term ending on December 31st, 2028. They continue to maintain compliance with the Metro Act, and we are recommending that the request permit extension be approved. There's not a whole lot of discretion that cities have with this Metro Act. It was something that was preempted by the state legislature. So anytime a utility like AT&T wants to utilize those, they pretty much have the right.
Very good. I do see where the funds go under our major street fund.
Yes, so the upside to the Metro Act is the state of Michigan collects that and then it distributes that based on the miles of utility that they have in your community. So within last year, we collected about $31,000 of revenue that we then put into the street fund because this does impact our right of ways. So there's revenue associated with it.
Good. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I'd move that we approve the AT&T Metro Act right-of-way unilateral permit extension for a term ending on December 31st, 2028, and authorize the city manager and city clerk to sign the necessary documents.
I get a support? Support. I have a motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Underhill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item 13A, Board of Review appointments.
Section 806 of the city charter prescribes that the board of review shall be composed of 3 qualified electors of the city. We are in need to reappoint some folks. So essentially what's before you is our recommendation to appoint Desmond Kirkland, Kareth Kurth, and Georgia Marsh. She wants to be an alternate to the board of review for terms ending on January 1st, 2026.
Thank you. And I do move forward with these nominations for approval. Any discussion?
I think it looks like a great list of people that are happy to have fill that position. I know that it's a tough one to fill, so
It is a tough one, yeah.
I'll move approval.
Have a motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Wolfersberger. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Brings us to item 13B, our Planning Commission appointments.
All right, similar vein, the City Planning Commission is authorized under Public Act 33 of 2008, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. The Planning Commission is governed by a board of 9 members and they are appointed to 3-year terms. So as you can see, we have some vacancies that are up and we are recommending that Carter Bright and Ian Stewart be appointed to the Planning Commission.
Do appreciate that. I did receive correspondence from Ian Schneitman, or Stewart, I'm sorry. What he did say is, he apologized for not being here this evening and appreciation for being provided this opportunity to support my community in this important capacity. And as thanks to the council and to the volunteers who serve on our city boards and commissions, and to the city staff for their dedication to ensuring Marshall remains a great place to live, work, and play. Your collective contributions continue to ensure the ongoing health and wellness of our community, its culture, and the environment. It is an honor to join you, and it's an honor to be part of this team. And then from our other appointment, Carter Bright. Carter is actively involved with the Nepapuasi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. He's worked with their planning department and currently is under the opportunity to develop their 5-year strategic plan. He brings that to this board as well and is looking forward to being a part of our planning commission. With that, I'll take a motion to approve these two candidates for the planning commission.
Your Honor, I will say one of the things I've enjoyed most about being the liaison for the planning commission is getting to see the real diverse perspectives that each member brings. And looking at these two applications, I can see that they will continue that. And I'm happy to make a motion to approve their appointment.
Support. Motion by Councilmember Wolfersberger, supported by Councilmember Underhill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. I'm sorry. That brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. Persons addressing city council are required to give their name and address for the record when called upon by the mayor. Members of the public shall be limited to speaking for a maximum of 2 minutes. Anyone wishing to address council? Yes, sir.
Again, Barry Wayne Adams, 622 West Green Street. You know, saw it with my own eyes. Chief of police comes up, makes presentment on the record to the legislative body about legislation, then it's passed. That is the executive influencing the legislative process. You know, trying to gaslight me and say, oh, it was some, you know, fictional entity, you know, why isn't that person here actually making the presentment of the complaint? You know, I'm familiar with the process. You know, this is all notice, you know, it's the ritual of contract. Notice of offering, negotiating, determining terms of performance, and then, you know, perfecting the contract. But you're supposed to be listening again to this side of the aisle. And again, perfect example of corporate fascism, the creation of all these subcommittees and boards, creating a pyramidal matrix of bodies corporate, and all of them are populated with people who are appointed, not elected. So this is further taking away the power of the people to actually determine who's going to be representing them. And, you know, once you get the right guys at the top, you can populate it with people all the way down who are going to be rubber stampers. And, you know, watching you guys operate, it's rubber stamping. So, you know, if anything, the people, even though there aren't many people showing up tonight, there are many people that are seeing what's going on. And it's been very instructive to them, the actual character of what's going on here.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Victoria McGuffin. I'm a citizen of Marshall Township. Some of you may remember when I spoke to you on October 16th about this creation of the Industrial Development District for Ford Blue Oval Battery Park. I talked with you about the fact that I believed you'd already made up your minds about how you were going to vote, and there was no point in me really saying anything to you about it because your hearts and your minds were already made up. So instead, I read to you from the state of Michigan Ethics Act, Standards of Conduct for Public Officers and Employees. The part that I read that was most important to you says, a public officer or employee shall not engage in or accept employment or render services for a private or public interest when that employment or service is incompatible or in conflict with the discharge of the office or the employee's official duties, or when that employment may tend to impair his or her independence of judgment or action in the performance of official duties. And so what I'd like to do with the remaining 1 minute is to tell you what I believe is the consequence of this. Your interactions with MIDA are so deeply entwined with one another that it is difficult for you to be independent. And you have shown no independence since the beginning of January. Since January, there've been a total of 18 total motions on which you've decided that have to do with MIDA, the mega site, and Ford. A total of, as of today, 99 total individual votes that you have made, 98 of which have been ayes. Now, if these votes were all independent of one another, the 5 of you today, all voting aye, the statistical probability of that would be 1 in 32. About a 3% chance that they were independent. Not very big, 97% that they were not. After these 18 different votes, the probability that 98 out of 99 would have voted aye, that probability is 1 in 10 to the 28th power. Scientists would call it vanishingly small, vanishingly small.
Thank you. Brings us to item 15, Council Manager Communications. Councilmember Underhill. Councilmember Karen. Councilmember Wolfersberger. Councilmember Cheney Huckett. I'm sorry, City Manager.
Only thing I'll share is happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you have an enjoyable time. And then, of course, our Christmas parade, is Monday night, so don't forget that. Great event.
Good chilling it.
Yes.
Thank you. And Clerk?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. I have nothing with that. Take a motion to adjourn. A motion by Councilmember Karen, supported by Councilmember Wolfersberger. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.